this will be a relationship which continues to be fundamental and strong, irrespective of what is the outcome of the US presidential election in November. I'd also like to make some brief comments about the aged care crisis which is playing out in Victoria right now. Today we know that there are 683 people who have the coronavirus in the aged care system across 61 centres in Victoria. This is a catastrophe. This is a system which is in crisis. This is a matter of heartbreak for families who are having to farewell loved ones, but not in person, in ICUs across the state. For all of us who have family and loved ones in the aged care system right now in Victoria, this is the single most terrifying moment since the pandemic broke out. Now, it's all well and good for the federal government to be in hiding in terms of the coronavirus crisis which is impacting Victoria right now. But the aged care system is the federal government's responsibility. We need to be hearing from our Prime Minister about this crisis right now. This is a system which has had problems that have been endemic for a very long time. That's why we've got a Royal Commission ongoing into the aged care system as we speak. This is a system which has been chronically underfunded by the Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison Coalition government. This is a system which now has a high degree of casualisation amongst its workforce. But it's also a system where the government is not overseeing proper communication with the families of those who are in it. And so there does need to be proper communication about the status of outbreaks in the various centres around Victoria. And there needs to be proper communication with the facilities themselves so that they can properly implement programs, important programs, such as not allowing people to work in two aged care facilities at once. Now, we need to hear from our Prime Minister today. We need to hear the Prime Minister taking responsibility and engaging in action. Now, it's fine to have the press conferences and the glib one-liners, but today we need to see from the Prime Minister action. This is a fractured system which is letting down the most vulnerable Victorians. And we learnt the lessons from Newmarch, or we should have, and it's critically important that today we hear from Scott Morrison about what he is actually going to do to stop this unfolding crisis from wreaking the havoc that we all so greatly fear. Any questions?
Mr. Marles, Jonathan Kirsley from 9 News. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Just in relation to the AUSMIC forum, which is taking place over the next 48 hours, we've seen China hit back Australia over the statement provided to the United Nations on the South China Sea over the weekend. What is it Labor would do differently in the relationship between Australia, China and the United States? Are you able to spell out how Labor would be different to the government?
Well, it's very important that the Australian government speaks with a single, clear voice. And we haven't heard that from the Australian government right now in respect of its relationship with China. Let's be clear. Australia has a very significant national interest when it comes to the freedom of navigation on the high seas. As an island trading nation, we are invested in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. And there is no sea which is more important to us than the South China Sea. Most of Australia's trade goes through that body of water. So it is critically important that we are asserting the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea in the South China Sea, and that does mean that, as a matter of principle, everything should be on the table, including freedom of navigation operations. But it's also very important that the government is properly managing its relationship with China. I mean, what we are seeing too often is a silent foreign minister, a silent defence minister, a quiet prime minister in respect of this relationship. And instead, the space is filled by fringe dwellers on the part of the government. And we have a situation where there is not a single relationship of substance between a member of this government and a senior figure in the Chinese government. This is our largest trading partner.
What has the government said that is actually wrong or harmful to the relationship? And again, I'll ask you, what would Labor do differently?
Well, we have seen government MPs making significant claims in relation to China, which are simply not helpful and not appropriate. And instead what we've got is a foreign minister who is totally silent. The diplomacy at a political level is simply not happening. There is no ballast in this relationship. And as a result, there is no ballast in this relationship, and as a result, we're seeing it play out in the way that it does. The government must speak with one single voice, and that needs to be the voice of its most senior people.